getting people with trucks and things. You can give me a rundown on that.
Well, there's not much mining happening now in Jamaica, to be quite honest. If we could just take them in turn. The first one is Alpat, which I helped to get reopened just about 2016. Since the COVID epidemic, they have postponed their program, which was to modernize the plant, to put in new equipment, and to expand its capacity. Nothing has happened there, so that has been shut for about 2.5, 3 years now. We're expecting now that the Chinese are reopening back their own economy, then Alpat will come back on stream. In relation to Jamalco, there was a fire there a year and a half ago. Shut down the plant for a while. They're back to about 25% capacity. So they are limping. In relation to Windalco, that's the one at Yorton, they still are producing, so I'm not too sure if it relates to that. I haven't heard of any issues with miners for Windalco. The fourth one is Naranda, which again, I know of about 2 mining contractors there, and I haven't heard of anything recently. So I'm not too sure if it is a Jamalco situation.
I think the one down in St. Anne or somewhere down that side, you have some people, the truckers, not getting any work because I think them have some other people in Jamaica who them say, carrying a lot of trucks. They are not getting any contracts, and it's bad for our people. It's really bad. Welcome, Herb. Just talking to the minister, the shadow cabinet minister.
Yeah, I'm getting double speak. Hey,
I'm turned down.
Paulwell, how you doing, good sir?
Yeah. I'm very well.
Herb, can you turn down your some phone or something around here? Yeah, turn it down. Yes, you need to turn down. You have something there you want to turn down. I some speaker or something.
I've got to find out why am I getting that double. It's like I get a delayed broadcast.
Yes, because you have something turn up there though.
It's open.
Yeah, you have a speaker on somewhere there. Turn it down.
All right, is that better?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
All right, I tell you, I had YouTube open at the same time that
yes, you need to turn it down. I know something turn on. Okay. Yes, Mr. Paulwell.
I'm talking to Zahra. She's trying to log in.
Okay, yes, no problem. Oh, hold on. I can see if she. Okay. Yes, Mr. Paulwell.
Right. So you mentioned St. Anne, and that is where Naranda operates. I am aware of 2 main contractors there. I'm not aware that there have been issues, but now that you've raised it in terms of the truckers, I will certainly look into it.
Please. Anything, Rattigan?
Yes. One question I want to ask is, well, not one, but to start with this, there was a recent brouhaha regarding mining in the cockpit country.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about that? Is there any truth to the fact that they're in the process of selling the lands, or developers are coming in, or miners are coming in? What can you tell us about that?
Well, the problem has always been the definition for the cockpit country. When I left office in 2016, we had pretty much signed off on a boundary based on science, based on recommendations. There were actually 3 proposals that were before me. I signed off on the second one in terms of the magnitude of the space that is to be allocated. There was a third one which identified a much bigger space, which would have taken in the parishes of almost all of St. Elizabeth, Trelawney, and St. Anne. The first one was the most limited space one that we had rejected, but this government has actually accepted it as the boundary and has signaled that it's going to to make it into a no mining area. The debate continues. What we are opposed to is for mining to happen within those boundaries that we had identified as the cockpit country. And we also have to face the fact that mining is a major problem, but there are also other environmental problems in the cockpit country. You'll be amazed to see how many trees are felled every year to make yam stick, to do all kinds of things that I believe also affect in a negative way the environment. So I think there has to be a much more serious effort at policing the cockpit country so that while we try to prevent mining, because that is the most glaring, there are other things that occur inside there that we need to fight against as well.
Let me ask you a follow-up question though.
Sure.
You just talked about environment, but I noticed you never talked about ownership, because there is a dispute going on about the Maroons having title or having an interest in this property. And so the question is, do you need permission from, is this Crown lands or is this owned by the Maroons and therefore you have to seek your permission?
I'm not getting into a debate about who own those lands from who don't own it. There's the government of Jamaica, and the government of Jamaica is responsible for the island of Jamaica.
Mm-hmm.
There are legal issues that I'm not going to delve into, but I know that as minister, I was determined, because it was my responsibility, to prevent mining within the confines of the cockpit country, and that was my responsibility.
Okay.
Herb?
Yes, Minister.
Yes, you calling me minister, man? I'm a member of parliament these days.
Shadow minister.
Yes.
I don't
That's
like
the last thing I heard.
I don't like the word shadow either. You know, I'm the spokesman.
All right.
Okay, yeah, I think with the spokesman. Listen, we here in the diaspora, we hear this big fight over the environmental encroachments that the government is doing. And one of the things that we are concerned about is that, is there an opposition? In that, is the opposition going to voice its displeasure in a loud fashion and involve other areas of the diaspora or Jamaica or private sector to fight against, as we do here in the US? You take the government to court. You know, if we follow Trump's example, everything that he wants to block, it goes to court. But it's a delayed tactic until the next election comes around. Now, is there a strategy on the part of the opposition that can delay these things that the government is doing by asking maybe a constitutional court to determine the constitutionality of some of the things that they've been doing to encroach in the cockpit country and elsewhere?
All right, and I would love to also, while I address that, to also deal with the issue of mining, because there is a very active, very vocal lobby against mining, and perhaps, Herb, this is one area where the voice of opposition, not only the formal opposition, but also a significant body of persons, that voice is very strong, very potent. In fact, you'd have heard about a court decision recently, where for the first time ever, it was quite historical, a judge grant an injunction against a mining operator from mining in a certain area. And that is unprecedented. So I believe that there is active and vocal presence in terms of mining, those persons who are opposed to it. But I wanted to say, though, that the bauxite alumina sector has contributed greatly to our development over the last 60 years. I believe that all governments must share some of the responsibility because there was put in place a regime, a regulatory framework to ensure that the negatives that come with mining would be addressed. So, for example, as people go to mine bauxite, you'll have reclamation, you'll have rehabilitation, and you wouldn't have these gaping holes that we sometimes see across the island. And that we must shoulder that responsibility and make sure in the future that never recurs. But I think that bauxite mining is not going to happen. It's not going to end tomorrow. It's not going to end 10 years from now. In fact, my own view is that there are enough reserves going to 30 to 40 years. So we have to find a way for the communities where the mining takes place and the companies to come together to work out how to coexist. Aluminum, which comes from alumina, is a very versatile metal. And it is one of those metals that will have a significant future going forward. Those of us who drive, those of us who fly, we all use aluminum. And so we can't say shut down, no, because
1 minute, Mr. Paulwell. Yes, Zahra, can you turn down your? Yes, you can. Right. You can hear us now. Yes, turn it down. Okay.
Right. So you can't say shut down the mining sector. Just so you have to find ways in which the communities can coexist. When I was minister, I left a project there, and the government has not taken it up. One negative effect of mining bauxite has been these mud lakes across the country, where at Kirkmine in Manchester, Alpart, in Newton, you have these huge lakes which represent the residue of the industry. We developed a project, worked with some Japanese to determine that we could commercially extract rare earth elements out of the waste. You can extract iron out of the waste, and all of that waste that we see now as red mud lakes can become productive. And in fact, the process that you use to extract these elements will make that entire place more environmentally friendly. In fact, the process will neutralize the very high alkaline content in these red muds. But more importantly, it will provide for us a value-added benefit in the metals that are inside there. So there is life still in mining. We just have to find a way now to see how communities and these companies can coexist. And I don't think it is beyond us to do so.
Now, as a follow-up to that question, I recall that there was an effort to have local investors as well as possible the diaspora.
Are you hearing me?
Yes. There was an effort to have local investors, to include the diaspora, engage in investments in the areas of mining and other areas where we had farmed out to maybe Russians, Chinese, or whomever. Is that alive and well, or did that ever happen? I'm kind of behind on that.
Yes. Well, in relation to the bauxite alumina sector, we have not had local or members of the diaspora involvement in the investment in that sector. What I can tell you, though, is that the area that I just mentioned, which is the rare earth element, extracting from the bauxite waste, these metals, I am aware of at least 2 Jamaican groups out of Canada. They have approached me in my role now as a private sector person, as a consultant, They are very interested in pursuing the opportunities there. Bear in mind that we have 50 years of waste material from the alumina production. And so it really is a tremendous opportunity. And I believe that these are areas where the diaspora should become involved, because you know what? Very soon, other people are going to be doing this, because you have bauxite waste all over where there is bauxite alumina production. And I believe that we need to move first to that market to seize the opportunity that we have here.
All right. So I'm going to make Zahra ask a question, then I'm going to come back to this. Zahra, follow.
Hi, Zahra. We can't hear you.
Turn your mic. Turn on the mic. Your mic, you mute. Your mic mute. Yes.
I realize no, thanks. All right, so accountability questions for you, Mr. Paulwell, and piggybacking off of what Herb just mentioned a moment ago, which is the issue of whether the opposition really presents a good counter to what is happening within the government. And I put it to you that for many years, obviously, you were overseeing the bauxite industry. UC Rizal has been particularly, it seems, in so many people's minds here in Jamaica, negligent. I mean, the one thing that really upset me the other day was seeing those cows that were down to just scrawny structures. And you really look at our laws and animal cruelty laws and the kind of slap on the wrist fines that are possible and the charges that are possible. What is the opposition really doing about holding UC Rizal to account when it comes to our environment? I understand NEPA, which is not doing, in my opinion, enough. I think that agency, for some reason, seems completely conflicted. I don't know if it's because of situations with Andrew Honus, but I just believe that there is a lot more that NEPA could be doing to hold UC Rizal to account for some of the destruction to our environment. And I'm not saying I don't recognize the value that UC Rizal provides in terms of jobs. I get it. I think that there is some economic benefit that we are reaping and it's not easily replaced. But what is the opposition doing about holding UC Rizal to account? Are you too close to UC Rizal to hold them to account, having worked with them for so many years?
Yeah. Well, first of all, let me correct a misimpression. I have been energy minister much longer than I have been mining minister. I became mining minister for the first time in 2012. So I was there for 4 years, during which time I think I'm the only minister ever to say to a company, I am going to take away your license to mine in Jamaica if you don't do certain things. I was the first minister to go to Moscow to say to Darius Pascal that we are not going to tolerate certain things. For example, the plant at Alpart was closed for 9 years with no schedule for reopening. Windalco was about to be closed when I became minister in 2012. And I said no. And they took me seriously because I gave them 6 months to get their act together. During my time when I was minister, we never had any spills. If there were spills, it never came to our attention. I've noticed, though, since 2016, greater frequency and more negative impact of spills. But, you know, sometimes people say what the opposition is doing to make people account. There's a government of Jamaica, you know, a government of Jamaica that has 49 seats in parliament that runs the country. We have a role, indeed, to make the government account. But sometimes I think people blame the opposition for things that go wrong in Jamaica when the focus ought to be on the government that has been given a tremendous mandate to rule. We, of course, have to point out certain things. In fact, I have in Parliament now some questions tabled for the Minister of Finance to answer in relation to another aspect of the bauxite industry at Jamalco, where we believe that there are some things going on there that when they come to light, it could represent a major scandal, right? That is our role. I don't support companies who don't abide by the rules, who are wanton in the way they treat our environment and our tree and our people.
Well, you're still not answering the question, Minister. Minister,
Yeah,
Mr. Paulwell.
Yes, you're confusing the rules.
No, I'm not confusing the roles. You're still not answering the question, which is this. What have you within the opposition done in the same way that Mark Golding came out against the whole car seat issue and the taxes? My question to you is, you as the shadow spokesperson on mining, what have you done specifically? What is your record showing when you've come out and spoken about what needs to happen to UC Russell to improve things right in your role now? As of 2016, as you put it.
The opposition was quite vocal in relation to what occurred recently with the fish kill. My colleague who speaks on the environment, Senator Sophia Fraser-Binns, was up in arms, and she was rampant, supported by the entire shadow cabinet. And I was very pleased to see that some compensation has been offered. That should never happen again. And in fact, what the government needs to do is to increase the bond that these companies have to put.
Right. Some people didn't accept it. They didn't think it was enough.
Yes. Well, those are legal issues. I suppose they will still contend, but I'm certain that we have had a very strong and potent voice against the.
Well, I hear you talking about Sophia Fraser-Binns, but I'm asking you about you. Right? What are you doing to speak out against UC Russell? That's what I'm asking.
No, well, listen, I have done what I did in my time. I have made sure that the company abided by their license. I have held them to account. I threatened to take away their license, and they performed. The government
but nothing now.
must make them. I'm not the government.
She's saying as the opposition, you know, the vice, you know, they want to hear the opposition.
I can only speak. But to get them to act, you need to have your Minister of Mining.
Right, but I'm saying I haven't been hearing you speak on UC Russell. I think that's where I'm having the deficit.
Well, if you tune in every Friday to my Facebook Live at 6 p.m., you will see, and my interviews are, my videos are there permanently. You will see my record of speaking on my subject matter in great detail, calling out people who are supposed to be called out, and to make sure that people are held to account.
Okay, I'll check it out. Thanks.
Marcel?
Yes, good night, everybody. Thanks for having me, Wayne. Good night, Sir Paulwell and fellow panelists. I sat here and I listened, and I was actually reading some of the chats also. But Mr. Paulwell, just to piggyback on what the young miss was saying from 18 Degrees North. You say
Zahra, by the way.
Zahra, yes. I'm not good with names. Not good with names. My apologies. But you say we should check out your Facebook Live at 6 p.m. You are on the Way Lonesome show. So let's have it here. Speak out, just as how you speak out on your page, you can do the same thing here. So I'm saying
that's what I've done. That's what I've done.
No, I'm not hearing you coming out as I would expect you, sir. And I know you can talk very strongly. But let me just say this before I ask you to speak out. I am a bit disturbed that the opposition was somewhat present when a major lie was spoken in Parliament, when the Prime Minister disclosed the boundaries of the cockpit country, which is a serious error. And a lot of persons that are influential and non-influential that have spoken about it. And I've not seen anything from the opposition to stand up strongly that be reversed. And remember, if you lie to the people of Jamaica, especially in the Parliament, it comes with consequences. And I'm not seeing that direction being addressed. So just as you speak about 6 o'clock on Fridays, let's have it tonight. Yes. Thank you.
Yes. Well, I'm not too sure what you want me to speak about. I'm quite clear. I'm quite clear with what I've said already. We have spoken out against the fish kill. We have spoken out against the PR work that the PM did in terms of the bauxite mining in the cockpit country. You know, to date, the Prime Minister has not yet declared that area a no mining area. And we spoke about that every year in my budget presentation. We call him out on the country.
Well, what I'm expecting, sir, is some mobilization. I've not even seen the opposition.
I'm not here.
You're not hearing me? You hear me now? I don't know, maybe the internet is choppy on my side.
No, Mr. Paul, please, Mr. Paulwell. Philip?
I'm not hearing you.
Okay,
right.
maybe
Yes,
having
I
some
hear you
internet
now.
issues. But as I was saying, I've not seen the opposition on the ground. And I think the people in the cockpit country needs some representation. And it could best come from opposition and a few members of the ruling government. I know Mr. Charles has his neighbor string buried somewhere up here. I think a place called Moko. And he's the only person I heard, and since him outside of Parliament, I hear him really talking strongly. He says he has raised it, but if he was within and didn't make the change, I mean, how much change did he really fight for? And he's a senior statesman. So I think the opposition should have backed him when he went down that line. Don't know what transpired, so I'm just speaking blindly, but I really want to see the opposition address that issue. It controls our environment, it controls our water supply, and it controls an ingenious set of people that is in that area that really needs that support. Whether they are Maroons or they're not Jamaicans or they're Jamaican, whatever it is, I'm not getting into that, but they need that support because it benefits us, the regular Jamaicans.
Well, I just mentioned earlier that for the first time, a court has granted an injunction against mining, and that must represent some kind of victory for those persons who have been arguing strenuously, who are anti-miners. So I think the lobby is alive and well. People have been, I believe, very vocal. There was a last year when the Prime Minister had wanted to grant license for housing to be done in an area in St. Anne as well. We called them out on it. It was, I think, initially granted for them to do mining. They have changed now, wanted to go into construction, but we still believe that the area is fragile and you should not have any type of industrial activity over there.
All right, Mr. Paulwell, what Marcel and Zahra and Urban and Wil saying, right? They want to hear the opposition more vocal out there, right? Because it seems like when the Prime Minister or this governing party now, this government, were in opposition, you know, them vocal on everything, them call out everything, although them can't fix nothing. You know, in my view, the worst, because them are all the people hostage. So them want to hear opposition get up and roar like a lion, right? I'm right. You want to hear the opposition more. Yeah? That is what the people them saying. They really want to hear the opposition more. Wil?
Yes, thanks. Mr. Paulwell, I would like to address the matter of corruption with you. And just bear with me. Let me start by saying that in 2019, MSET, and this is a report I'm looking at, that 2019 MSET was accused of paying out 44.4 million without formal lease agreements. In 2019, Petrojam did not reconcile products received versus volume ordered before paying suppliers. Also in 2019, MSET poor management of fleet vehicles. 2018, $663,000 spent to acquire computers which were unused after 2 years. 2018, deficiencies in Petrojam human resources management practices. 2018, poor decision-making cost Petrojam in excess of 67 million for a fence. 2018, Petrojam board of directors ineffective in oversight role. Now, that didn't occur under your watch, but here's what occurred under your watch. You took over that ministry in 2012, Ministry of Energy, Mining, Science and Technology. In 2015, USF, they said it failed to collect levies. Amounts owing to the USF increased 44% from 81.7 million to 117.8 million. Same 2015, $881.1 million was released to e-learning pilot projects without reports submitted to justify payments of funds. Say in 2015, not taking action to get timely receipts of reports from terminating carriers. Question is, do you have the moral high ground to levy any complaints against the opposition, considering that these things happen under your watch?
No, man, just now you mentioned about 2019. I wasn't around in 2019.
No.
You mentioned 2018.
No.
I was.
One second, hold on a second. No, you didn't listen to the question carefully. I said these things happened not under your watch. So the question what I did was I laid out what happened since you left, and I said this is what happened when you were there. So because things happened when you were there, do you have the moral high ground to now levy complaints against them, since they're going to say, well, you're the same thing, you did the same thing, or the same thing happened under your watch?
It is not true. I was the person who established the Universal Service Fund in 2005. That came about of the telecommunications revolution. Many of you don't remember who was the person who fought cable and wireless and got them to relinquish their monopoly license, and Jamaica became the leading country in terms of how to liberalize your telecommunications to benefit your people. Out of that came a fund which was established by a tax on calls coming into Jamaica. That fund realized $14 billion over a 6-year period. When that fund was established, people fought against it. The carriers actually shut down Jamaica for 3 days because they did not want Jamaica to have the type of, well, Jamaicans to have the basic access to telecommunications, to broadband internet that we were pushing. So first of all, you need to acknowledge that the USF was established, it worked well, it served well, it established e-learning company, which provided computers in our high schools. It established the tablets in school program. It established the community access points, over 700 of those that came about. Now, you have read something about 2015 that I'm not aware of, because that has never come up in my presence at all. Of how much it was, 800 million?
No, let me go over the 2015 accusations. 2015, 881.
Where was that? Where was that, by the way?
2015.
No. Which report was that in?
It's put out by Citizens Commitment and Oversight. It's JAMP. So unless you're going to tell me JAMP is incorrect with information.
No. I am saying to you, we have never had any complaint about USF until 2016, when the Auditor General went inside there and dug up from 2016 to 2019 some of those things that USF mentioned. USF has been a model agency.
All right. Now here's the thing. What USF did under your watch was noble, admirable, and acceptable. What I'm talking about are the things.
Yes,
I'm talking about the things.
When you say that, you must breathe a little bit, so people appreciate that Jamaica under my watch was transformed from a country where we had 19% teledensity to over 100% in 4 years, where we had the latest in technology, better than the United States of America, where our Prime Minister, P.J. Patterson, was the first leader to do a telecast via the internet. President Clinton followed afterwards. People just rush over those things.
No. But Mr. Paulwell, here's the thing. Yeah. Credit is due where it's due. And so I think the panel will agree with me that the things that you mentioned that are accomplishments, we accept those things. But at the same time, no one is perfect. And we're saying we're looking at the imperfections.
All right, fair enough.
Right. So we're saying that in 2015, there are 3 things I'm looking at on this report that are deficiencies as far as USF are concerned. Now, I don't want to belabor the point. If you want, I can send you this report and we can have a discussion later on about it.
No, and I'm very keen on that, because I tell you, we made sure that the USF was chaired by a pastor of tremendous good reputation, that they had a board in place. I never heard under my watch.
Okay, you know what?
USA.
I'll yield the floor to, because
Yeah.
there are lots of people here on the panel. I'll yield the floor, but with this caveat that I will get this report to you, and we'll have a discussion later on, and then you can dispute it or you can accept.
All right.
Not
So
a problem,
we're going to carry back
but
right
you
now.
know, I'm very keen on talking about what was done in science and technology, and how Jamaica led the way. And people tend not to remember those days when you have to go to a call box and line up to make a call, or when you have to push in 30 digits using ICAS to make a telephone call, when you have party lines. People forget about those things.
Okay,
Yes, sir. Let's take a look at the time the Australians were there and they were digging up gold ore.
What?
The Australians, they were mining gold up in the cockpit country. Yeah. Was that under the PNP's watch?
I know of a gold project in Clarendon, a place called Penance.
Up in Crawl, yes.
And, right.
Yes, up in
right.
Crawl. Let them mine around 16 pounds of gold and some silver and thing, yes.
When Bobby was the Minister of Mining, yes, that occurred, yes. Unfortunately, when I was Minister of Mining, we never found gold during my period.
Oh, they never found any, you're saying?
No. When Bobby Pickersgill was the minister,
right,
that company did in fact find some commercial quantity of gold, and but I think they closed after a while. What I can tell you now, though, based on information that we now have, there has been a company that has been doing exploration across the country, and they have now identified across Jamaica where metals, minerals might exist in commercial quantities. I'm waiting to see that report, because that will really be revolutionary, because mining has always been it's always been a gamble. You know that there might be deposits of something somewhere, but you don't know if it's going to be in commercial quantities. And so we are hearing that this company now has technology that has been able to map Jamaica. Remember, I believe that Jamaica has commercial quantities of oil and or gas. And before I die, I believe we're going to find it.
Now, is that because we have asked NASA, when they do the Earth's survey, the geographic surveys that they do, Earth penetrating radar that goes down and can identify various signs of metals everywhere? Is Jamaica into the scientific portion of that research? And did that start?
Our research goes back to about 30 years. And it starts by looking at rocks, their formation, how they are structured, and then you go into seismic surveys. The latest seismic survey, which was done based on a license that I granted in 2015 to this Irish company, shows the tremendous potentiality of huge reserves on the southern coast of Jamaica, a place called the Walton Basin. I saw a report recently where the people are now looking, investors, to drill. We did do some drilling in the 80s, but all of those came back with nothing. These guys now are confident that they have seen structures by way of the seismic survey to indicate that there must be some huge quantities of oil and or gas. And I believe the government has to push them faster. They need to urge and market Jamaica a lot better to get other explorers to come and look at what we have here. I'm certain that we have commercial quantities here.
That lastly, when the U.S. ambassador came down and he pushed the NIA director aside to cease and desist from investigating the prime minister and the leader of opposition. They had a meeting with them. One of the things that he has followed up on now with the assistance of Mr. Vaz is establishing US 5G facilities where the cables come ashore. How did the 5G fall solely into the hands of the Chinese? And wasn't it competed between China, US, and other entities? Seeing that the US was solely responsible for running those underwater cables out of Hollywood, Florida, and Puerto Rico that comes ashore in Jamaica.
Yeah, well, I'm happy you touched on this, because when we liberalized telecommunications in Jamaica, it was on the basis of competition. Digital came to Jamaica having competed to get a license. They competed with other companies. Jamaica earned over $100 million out of that exercise. I am concerned that we haven't seen the same level of competition, but recently we heard of this allocation of a license for 5G. Nothing has started. Nothing has happened since that announcement. So we don't even know whether or not that company is still interested in Jamaica. But what we do know is that 5G is the way to go. The Chinese have tremendous expertise there. The Americans as well. We are really lost now in terms of where we go, because since that announcement was made about a year and a half ago, nothing has happened.
Was the Chinese license granted under you or under the current government?
No. Thank God this time, nobody can blame me for this. When we left office, we were thinking about 4G, and we had expanded the license to Digicel and Cable and Wireless for them to get to 4G. I had written in the license that within 5 years, 90% of Jamaica should have this technology. I have called out the minister time and time again for not insisting that that term in the license be honored, because there is a power that the minister has to terminate the license when the companies fail to perform. The Jamaica telecommunication system has deteriorated significantly since 2015.
Okay. I see a lot of the people in the trade talking, they want to hear something and to hold the government account. All right. We're going there. We're just, talking to Mr. Paulwell from there and then coming here.
I have a few questions, if you would allow me, Wayne.
Yes, sir.
All right. So I wanted to talk to you personally about your wealth, because I saw this video where you're worth US 50 million. You saw it?
It is no longer up. It is no longer up. The lawyers wrote to them. Let me tell you how it came about. In 2017, I became the first member of parliament in Jamaica's history to put on a website all the years of my filings at the Integrity Commission. So you can go back to 1995 and check when I came into politics to 2017. Every detail, no other prime minister, no other leader of opposition, nobody else ever. So in reporting on it, the Gleaner Company, in lauding me, they were commending me for doing this. They indicated at the time that my net worth was a modest $57 million. People didn't realize that they were talking about Jamaican dollars, which means that I was a very poor person. So when we saw this thing, my lawyers wrote to them to say, you need to go back and check the records. They did, obviously. Not 57 million US. Gosh, God, I wish I could have 1/80th of that. So they have pulled it, but I'm not going to let them get away with it. So I have instructed my lawyers to pursue not only an apology, but damages, because they need to be much more careful with how they report, especially when it comes down to people's personal reputation.
So did they not reach out to you prior to running it to find out? No questions?
No. They just saw the cleaner thing say 57 million, and that was it for them.
So what them did, then put on the US on it.
Put on the US on it. And listen, if you know how many calls I get from my constituents, from women, people say, boy, this man here wealthy. Not so. Actually, I tell you, it is only in the last 2 or 3 years, now that I'm fully back in my practice. And I think when you see my reporting this year, you'll see that, yes, I'm doing a little better than I used to do. And I'm very proud of that. People know that I'm a damn good lawyer these days.
Okay, so let me ask you, because I'm going to be doing a series on politicians, and this is another question I want to get to: politicians and their offshore companies, and politicians and their nonprofits. That's my series coming up on the 18 Degrees North newsletter platform and Substack, if anybody is interested. Anyway, one of the things I wanted to ask you about: do you have any offshore companies over in St. Lucia, Cayman, or any of those other jurisdictions around the world?
I believe it is wrong. It is immoral for anybody who is leading this country as member of parliament, as councillor, who ought to set the example. There's no reason why you shouldn't pay your full taxation right here in Jamaica. There's no reason why you should have offshore companies. So when I put my financials out there, if anybody goes and finds anything wrong with it, it is a criminal offense. So I believe my position is that nobody who serves in our parliament should have offshore companies. That is
but your opposition leader, your head of your party does.
I'm talking about me. I'm talking about
no, but hold on a second. Again, you think it's so wrong, but yet you essentially are within the party of a leader who has. And so I'm just asking you, again, what have you said to him personally? How do you feel about the fact that he has them? I'm doing a story on him, by the way, so I'm quoting you.
Yeah. When I declared my assets to the world in 2017, I made a statement in Parliament that I believe that all of us should declare our assets, should declare whatever we file with the Integrity Commission, and not a summary. I file about 15, 20 pages. I put out everything there, so you can see. I think they removed the banks and the account numbers, but you can see where the balances are, and so on and so forth. I believe that should apply to everybody. I don't really want to on your program say anything about persons and how they hold onto their wealth. I just don't believe that as a leader in this country, I should have offshore accounts.
But let me just ask you something though. You have some politician came into politics, not a businessman or anything, and over the years, just like 5 years, 10 years, then them have this, the peers alone, them pay. What before I finish that, what's the pay of a minister, like national security minister and these things? What's the pay?
Well, forgive me. I haven't focused on that in a while. I haven't been in that position in a while. I know as a member of parliament, I get about 4 point something million per year. But Wayne, let me tell you something. I have been a member of the Jamaican cabinet for 15 years, during which time numerous number of former colleagues, people who served in parliament, people who served in the cabinet, we as a cabinet had to approve money for them to go to doctor, money for them to be buried, and so on and so forth. So sometimes we say this and it appears as if everybody is in this league of becoming wealthy once again in the politics. That is not so. No one man died a poor man. I have seen recent politicians, very recent, who can't afford bread, cannot afford to live. So don't make it a broad brush, please.
No, it's not a broad brush. But what I'm saying, right? I see a lot of politicians now going to politics. Just the other day, just going to politics, 2000, and them value the money, what them value, I can't even believe. There wasn't a businessman, they never have nothing before them enter politics. But now them rotten rich.
Yes, well, those give others the bad name. Those give others.
So make me just follow it up now. So you believe now, if your party form the other government, if you're going to do the honorable thing, and we start to hold these politicians, everyone right across the board, accountable, right? And if you can't declare your asset and tell me, oh, you get these money and things, it will taken away, and these people will end up in prison.
But of course, but very importantly, we need to make sure we have the mechanism to investigate, because people can declare things, you know, and don't declare everything. But there are ways to trace and track wealth. And I believe that we need to make sure we have the training here, as exists elsewhere, where people who might want to do things in family members' names, for example, that those can be tracked and traced. And in the end, everybody should be required.
All right. All right. For instance, I know like you have done maybe he's in the Senate, right? But we know not come from Grace and them they're all over the world. We know Mark, he might do some banking and things from way back, before him going into politics, right? Right? So we know who and who in a business, but me I talk some politician now, start from councillor, and before them leave our turn, what them call them in the council there, mayor. Them wealthy. But the pay don't add up to what them own. And that's the problem. You understand? When I'm talking super wealthy now. And now them turn minister in a space of time, them can't even count their money.
Yeah.
We feel the country, a time for the country of some people now, we take back these things. All of them to hold to account. No one bigger than the law. Right? We need to do something. So if your party form the next government, you people prepare to take the real step to cut out these kind of things and investigate. Don't forget to investigate.
Well, let me say my position.
Yes.
Because I think, to be fair, the PNP will have to speak as a party after the consultation. I believe that everybody who is in public life should be required to declare upfront their assets, their liabilities, and it should not just be a summary. It should be line by line from your various institutions that you invest in, what mortgages you have, and it should not be left up to the discretion of the public officer. And I believe you really don't need to go to all levels in the public service. You need to focus a lot at the top.
All right. Make us say something again, because in 2002, the Prime Minister now, he make a speech about 2002, he couldn't find 1,000 US to invest. And by 2007, when he was the education minister, I think Zahra did something about him too, 2007, 2008. Him open SSL. I mean, him invest in SSL. Him just close it the other day. Him just I couldn't know 2021 him close it. We don't even know how much money him invest. But I watched 17, 18 degrees north and see the Prime Minister say him get some loans and everything. Right, Zahra?
No, not loans. No, he never got loans. He never used the word loans. I don't know why people keep saying loans. He said he used money from his accounts at SSL, something like that.
From SSL. And
his accounts. It's not, he never said he took out loans. And in fact, he rebutted that whole concept in his latest press release that came out about SSL.
So SSL. But
SSL and
these money,
JMB.
money, you know, what kind of money? And I think you report that he make like 60,000 at the time. 60,000 is paid.
That's without the allowances, yeah, at the time, but without the allowances.
But the house value like over 500 and something thousand US, and the next property with over 100 and something. Wow. So these are the things that me I talk about, because this was a man who said he could not find in 2002 1,000 US. And if you add up the pay by 2011,
when in what context he said that he couldn't find the 1,000
like he go school and couldn't even pay him, couldn't find 1,000 US at the time, because maybe too much bill and everything to invest in some investment, and you know you put it in some stocks or something, couldn't find it. You understand? So in sight, watch that video, and now you know. I mean, nothing not clear. So these are the things where we are talking about Jamaica. We in the diaspora, we're tired of these kind of things.
But
into account. Yes.
When I declared my assets in 2017, the Gleaner Company challenged the Integrity Commission, challenged the media, and I respect 18 Degrees North for their stick-to-itness, challenge everybody to take Phillip Paulwell's declarations and do some investigation. It's not difficult to go behind things, you know. And so it should be for everybody else to delve into the details, to try and do your own investigation to see if these declarations are truthful, because if they are not, you're going to prison.
So, Zahra, before Zahra come in, but let me carry in Zahra now. So you believe if you form the next government, you know, cabinet and everything, you believe the police, a time for the government separated from the police force?
What do you mean?
Because, you know, the police force, what we see right here, you know, is the police was running by, you know, like, I mean, it's running by the politician, right? It's like the police force not doing them duty, right? Because, all right, for instance, the prime minister going to the house the other day and say, you know, some people selling some land, and in order, the police should just go and knock down the land. I don't even think that's right. Our prime minister telling police and giving police order for knock down people place and tell us a criminal. Yeah. Him tell us that is what the prime in the house. Him tell us lie. Then him go back and say these people are not squatters by the other day.
Yeah. What I will agree with you on is that the politicians, the government must deal with policy. Operations should reside within the force.
That's what I'm saying.
I believe, though, that we need to change the way we deal with crime and violence in the country. I think we need to change the way we deal with murder. If Jamaica could cut its murder rate by 50%, in no time at all, we would become a veritable paradise. Why is our murder rate so high? One, people kill wantonly, knowing that many of them will never be found. So we have to find a way now how to nail perpetrators of crimes, and especially those who are behind some of the crimes. Secondly, we have to deal with some of the socio-economic problems that we face long-term, our education system and so on. In relation to detecting crime, I think we need to find a way to get the resources. We go to the IMF to borrow money to deal with our balance of payment problem. We need about 40 billion of state-of-the-art technology to be able to identify where a shot is fired, to be able to view people.
40 billion of what kind of money? Jamaica?
No, my estimate is about 40 billion Jamaican dollars to put cameras on every street.
So hold on, Mr. Paulwell. But the government does both them spend like 176 billion.
Foolishness.
So
I think we can. Mr. Rattigan is here, and I haven't listened to him lately on the strategies.
But shame on you, Minister. Shame on you.
Well, I'm a lawyer these days and I have to earn a living.
Oh, you have to make time for me, man.
Speaking of, I have a question about what you just said about, sorry to cut the conversation. It's just something I heard the other day. Yeah. As a minister of the cabinet, a member of the cabinet, are you allowed simultaneously to also have business dealings? No, private business dealings? You're not?
Not at all. So listen, I became a lawyer in 1988, and I went to be a Jamaica Commodity Trading Company as a legal officer. I left there and went to the trade board to be the trade administrator. I left and went to the Fair Trading Commission. Then I became a minister of state. So it wasn't until 2007 when we were kicked out that I started my own practice. And then Mr. Golin, no, not Mr. Golin, we won the elections in 2012. So I had to close my office and went back in the government. I only restarted my practice in 2016.
All right, just stick up in. So why is it that you have a health minister in 2021 open a rice distribution business? He's the only shareholder.
We're not asked the same question.
No, Zahra, but you're not. No, but serious.
When I heard that, right, and in fact, yes. I'm working on something with Andrew Hones where that is concerned as well. Right?
Yes.
But nevertheless, when he said that to me a while ago, in fact, last week I wrote to the cabinet about it, the cabinet office. I wanted to find out what not legislation, but what policies exist, yes, barring or governing cabinet ministers being their own, having their own private businesses and so on like that. And so I think, I'd like to work on that as well, right?
Yeah. I believe that it's very difficult, especially for a minister, to be involved in an active way in a commercial practice that won't create conflict of interest. So, for example, your attorney general can't have a law practice, but also you should not be involved in other businesses. You can put into a blind trust your interest. You should not be an active player.
That is when you have a business before. Like Mr. Golin, him turn a prime minister and put that into a blind trust because I know him do banking from way back, or Mr. Webby or somebody like that, right? But not like this minister, who just go in 2021 in COVID, 85 million. Zahra, you need to do that story. 85 million to market me, right? We don't know where that money turn. And then come and open something. Him are the only shareholder. The only shareholder. Who give him the license? He won't friend them. Who give him that license? And not just him alone, but you have other ministers right now. Them carrying in potato, chicken back. They have license for everything. And that's why I say we want to separate the police force from this kind of. No, it need to, We know the diaspora hold them accountable, Unless we stop sending more money. I remember them can't do without more money now, 3.8 billion. Listen me, them have to talk to us, and we're serious about it. We're very serious about it. Yes,
so the real question, Wayne,
yes,
are all of these people, Mr. Paulwell, are they above the law? Why are they acting above the law when you do in fact have an independent? You're supposed to have an independent MOCA that can do these prosecutions, or Go ahead.
First of all, I don't believe that it is today unlawful for a minister to do business. My own view is that it is immoral, especially where there are obvious conflicts of interest. Now, in my time, if you are involved in a business, you have to declare it to the Prime Minister. So when you have been appointed to the cabinet, you have to say to PJ, listen, I'm involved in A, B, and C. And then he will say, this can't work. This ministry is not for you, or you have to put this into a blind trust and so on. That is
what's the difference from now today, 2023, than back in those days? It can't be different. It should have been
the same.
It should be stronger and better.
It should, yes.
You can't get arrogant in a 2023 that these people can just run and do anything in front of us and we don't say nothing. It's wrong. These things wrong. Some people will start getting well accountable, right? You're right. I'm right, Ratty.
Indeed. Let me, Marcel, I think it's Marcel's time, but Marcel, you want me to go ahead and just ask a question?
Yeah, man, go ahead, man. Go ahead.
Okay. Let me just make a comment by saying that the members of the lower house in parliament, they earn approximately $27,760 per year. Now, in politics, people are rarely drafted. People volunteer to become politicians. And so I have no compassion, no pity if somebody goes into politics and they're poor and they can't buy bread. That's their decision. Think about the people that they're representing. That's what they went there for, not because of their own self-aggrandizement or self-enrichment. They went there to represent people so that they can have a better life. And so if a politician ends up can't pay his rent, that's of no moment. He went there because he volunteered. Nobody pushed him there. Here's a question I have for you, sir. And we're back on law enforcement. You broke away from your party as far as supporting states of emergency recently. Now, I want to ask you a question before I ask you the real question. Before you broke away, did you support the state of emergency extension, any of them? And I think there were 4 or 5 of them. I don't have the documents here with me, but I think you have 4. Did you at any point voted for an extension?
All right. So I did not break away from my party in relation to our position on state of emergency. What I said clearly is that there's a political price that we would pay. And I can only speak on behalf of the people in East Kingston and Port Royal who have been terrorized by these wanton acts of violence on them, by people who they know. They come to me and say, so-and-so have a gun, and I'm shooting. I call the police and say, listen, I just get a call that so-and-so shoot somebody. The police said, okay. So they go and hold the guy. And because of the fear that the people have, I can't get anybody to say, listen, I saw when this man go and kill this person. Sometimes the only respite that these people have is when those guys are taken off the streets for a little while. So I know that the states of emergency have been popular amongst the people because in the absence of a real crime plan, and this government has not demonstrated an appetite to develop a proper crime plan. People saw the state of emergency as their last vehicle of hope against the terrorists around. Now, when it comes down to the criminal justice system, people describe me as a dog. I don't believe in capital punishment. I don't believe in corporal punishment, right? So obviously, I can't support a system where people just go in and scrape up people and lock them up indefinitely. I don't support that. All I was trying to say is that based on the fact that my people wanted it because they saw it as the only way that they can come out of the house and go to church and go to school, I said that would have paid a political price. I think the tide has changed. I think more Jamaicans now are not accepting states of emergency the way they have been practiced in the country. I have voted against it. I have voted for it at different times.
Okay. That's the question I really wanted to ask you. If you have ever voted for it, and you just answered me. You said yes. Now, you just mentioned about a crime plan. But let me put it to you that it's about time we stop asking for a crime plan. There is no such animal. And I'll tell you why. The PNP did not have a crime plan. What they refer to as a crime plan, they refer to it as a national security plan, which is the same thing that this government is using. There is no crime plan because a crime plan is annual, it's measurable, it's attainable, it's reasonable, and it's supposed to be explained. Now, you face a political peril when you do a crime plan, because if you do not accomplish the goals and the objectives within that 12-month period, then you have to face the wrath of the opposition. So there is no such thing as a crime plan. And I got this from the former Minister of National Security under the PNP, none other than Mr. Peter Bunting. He said that, no, because I asked him, where's your crime plan? Did you have a crime plan? And he said, no, we're using the National Security Plan. And so this government has, they've tinkered with it around the edges. And so what they have is a national security plan called Plan Secure Jamaica. That's what they have.
Well, I disagree with you. I disagree with you on that.
Okay.
Some last year I did take some time to reflect on these important issues affecting Jamaica, and one of the articles that I wrote to the Gleaner Company, and it was published, was my idea of how to solve crime in Jamaica, which to me amounted to a plan. And yes, I believe that you have to be bold out there and step out of the crease and decide that this is your plan and declare it to be so. We lose our draw. We have to solve our crime problem. And I believe it is not beyond us. You know, people say that I'm trying to get the job as Minister of National Security. But trust me, if I became Minister of National Security, we would not only have a crime plan, but we'd be well on the way to solving the crime that has afflicted Jamaica in ways beyond imagination, and especially after 1980.
What would the crime plan look like? What would be the planks of your crime plan, top 5? That would be different from what obtains.
Well, sorry to interrupt you. So one quick second, just because I'm going to lose this point. You said you disagreed with me. No, you said you disagreed. You said you disagreed with me, but I don't hear a disagreement because what you said was your plan, not the PNP's plan.
No, but you said that a crime plan don't work. I thought what?
No. I never said that. What I said was a crime plan is you have to be. It has to be measurable, attainable, reasonable. You have to publish it and all those things, and that's why people stay away from a crime plan, because if you don't accomplish your goals and objectives, then you face political peril. I didn't say a crime plan is not workable, but what you gave me was your impression of a crime plan, not your party's crime plan, because based on what I'm hearing, your party does not have a crime plan. Am I correct on that?
And to be clear, when I wrote those articles, I wrote them as Phillip Paulwell.
Okay, so it's not your party. Okay, I yield to my fellow panelist, Ms. Zahra Burton.
Right, and in a reflective mode. And the plan that I put in the papers had a number of components. First of all, the reforms that we need to do with our police force. Our police force came out of a colonial society where the policing that we have become rooted in is not one which is seeking to prevent crime, but is really one that came out of a process of brutalizing people, using hard policing to get people to conform, rather than using other tactics, such as community policing, such as the policeman becoming a part of the community and not a part from the community. I mentioned the use of technology. The other day,
Mr. Paul, we just come in Zahra, and then we just ask the next question there, yeah? Just a minute. Zahra, she finished something and she gets yes.
I was answering her question.
He's answering.
Okay.
Yeah, he's answering the planks of his crime plan.
Okay.
Right. So police reform. And again, those details I can share with you. But the police force has to be restructured to be a modern policing body capable of greater intelligence gathering and greater level of building trust between the community and
stick a pin. Let's talk about intelligence gathering, please, Mr. Paulwell.
Remember, I'm not the Minister of National Security or the opposition spokesman. I just try to, based on my own experience, give some thoughts on the matter.
Okay. However, you know, this issue of intelligence gathering, I don't know how Rattigan feels about it or Herb.
Strongly.
What?
Strongly.
No, I'm talking about on the issue of the monitoring of our phone calls. And this was something that was arranged under the PNP, Dr. Peter Phillips. And, you know, it's something that concerned me greatly because you start to ask the question, how much are we giving up to the United States and to some of these other partners? And the current administration, they went ahead and renewed some of those agreements. And we really have not gone into detail about how much are we actually sharing, how much are they monitoring us for. Further to that, we know that the Israeli technology is being used in Jamaica. We know that our energy minister went to Israel the other day and did some kind of activity, met on some issue of security, but we don't hear nothing about it. I went to a press conference and I was immediately shut down when I asked about it. I have repeatedly asked, not repeatedly, I would say at least, I think once or twice, asked the opposition spokesperson on national security, which is Peter Bunting, about what he has discussed with our prime minister, because our prime minister has said that he will not discuss it in parliament regarding the issue of the Israeli spyware software, whatever it is being used here, whatever security equipment is here, I don't know. And you get a sense that he's not interested. He's interested in posturing. This is Bunting I'm speaking about, Mr. Bunting. And so when you talk about intelligence gathering, right, one of the concerns that maybe a journalist like myself would have is, in addition to all the spying that may be done on the criminals, are we being targeted as journalists that are doing our jobs? Are we, as civil society activists that are doing our jobs, on the radar of all of these different spy technology, which is what's happening in other countries where journalists and civil society activists are targeted? And so when you talk about intelligence gathering, I'd like you to kind of hone in on that particular part of it. What's your take on whether the Israelis and the United States and some of the English, they should be allowed to just listen to our calls?
Right.
You know, I mean, what's your take on that?
Well, first of all, my position is that you can't solve our crime problem without the ability to get intelligence. And in our case, there has always been a limitation in how to get intelligence because of the concept of informer fidel. So you're not going to get a lot of the intelligence from people who are actual eyewitnesses. And so you will have to use a lot of technology to do that. But you're right. There's a thin line between acceptable privacy invasion and non-acceptable privacy invasion. And sometimes governments run afoul of the law by using it in ways to penalize people who they perceive as their enemies, and so on. Our law is quite clear, and our constitution is quite clear about the right of privacy. There has to be a watchdog on this, because when an institution can listen to my telephone conversation, it can do so for good reasons, but it must be based on some reasonable suspicion that you are engaged in activities that are or will be unlawful, and that somebody with legal training ought to make that determination. So it should not be that everybody is subject to the infringement of their privacy. That would be unconstitutional, that would be unlawful, and that should not happen. And I know that governments all over the world get in trouble where this is concerned. But I support, with the limitation, the ability of law enforcement agencies to eavesdrop on persons who are within their grasp as criminals, likely criminals, people who are engaged in illegal activity. But you have to go to a court and establish that. There's no way we're going to be able to get intelligence. I'm not hearing you.
Do you believe that you were eavesdropped on when you lost your visa, you know, from the United States? Do you believe that maybe any kind of conversations that you have that were sensitive, whether with Venezuelan agents or any kind of sensitivities there, may have contributed to you losing your visa?
Well, you know, I know I wasn't engaged in anything illegal, so anybody can listen to who I talk to. I have friends in Cuba, I have friends in Venezuela, I have friends in the US. I have a right to that. People talk about Venezuela, you know, but people don't understand what Venezuela did for Jamaica. With Petrocarib, which I proudly was a part of. I was the deputy chairman of Petrocarib. That facility saved Jamaica from economic ruin, not in 2005 when we entered it, but in 2008 when the JLP was in government. When we came back to office, we owed Venezuela $3 billion through my effort and, of course, the Minister of Finance, who led the delegation. Venezuela took $1.5 billion off that, so that we were now able to celebrate the tremendous advancement in terms of our debt to GDP. So I regard them as good and noble people, and I'm just embarrassed the way this current government has treated Venezuela, and now we'll have to go back to Venezuela.
Were you ever given a reason definitively why you got your visa taken away?
No, what I do know is that it was taken away after Vaz's own was, and there are some people believe that it was some political quid pro quo. I'm happy when it was returned. It was returned for 10 years, no restrictions.
Okay.
No
you were continuing about your plan, your different components of your crime plan. I don't mind if you continue going, but I had to interrupt you about the intelligence sharing part of it. So if you don't mind, you can get back on the crime plan, like the top. You said one was police reform. What's the second, third, fourth, and fifth?
Yeah. I didn't develop on the technology side because I believe that has a lot to do with it. And it's not just mechanical technology. You know that dogs are very effective in sniffing out guns and ammunition and drugs. But I wonder why we don't see more dogs being used. I wonder why when my communities are locked down in curfews for days, not one gun can come out of that. No ammunition. And 2 days before that, people were firing crazy.
Let me tell you something now. You know, I'm born and grown in East Kingston. And let me tell you something now, Mr. Paulwell. I believe, you see, you know, each time you hear government come in and talk about crime plan, I believe the police, because them trained, them supposed to come up with a plan. You supposed to come up with policies. Deal with it, make them get the resources, because they are the specialists in this. Right? Not the government, not somebody like you take up a security minister and then him sit down and say a plan. What do you know about policing? What do you know about policing?
I'm not finished my crime plan.
I'm not finished. So and next thing you just say gun and dog. Make I tell you something. If you clean that police force, clean from top. Yeah, politician and all come down. Make I tell you something. If you have a clean police force, you cut down crime. Because a lot of people don't talk because a lot of police involved in crime. 100%. You understand? 100%. They involve a lot of police. All right, for instance, someone come over this Rockford station and give a report and said, this man, that and that and that, but them don't know. So this police involved in a corruption and crime. And they might call back and tell the man, them say, yeah, Mr. Man, this and that. And then them go hide him. And that's straight. You understand? So they need to have a balance and start deal with these things. You can't attack Like they say, okay, we're gonna deal with crime and we have a plan. No, deal with policies. Police trained to deal with these things. You understand? That them to start to and work with the people. Them need community policing. You can't come with that every time like what the government doing now, right? The government doing this now, and you come with zones on state of emergency. What that do? That part of people. You understand?
Yes. But I'd just like to go back to Zahra, because I'd mentioned about intelligence gathering and the use of technology. Do you have a problem with cameras in your neighborhood? Because I believe that is essential in modern day crime.
That's yes, that good. All police should wear cameras.
Right.
All. Yes.
Well, not only on their bodies, but in the community.
The cars, everything. Yeah, we believe in that. Yes.
Right. So that's a part of the 40 billion that it will take. You also have to monitor far more effectively your coast line, because we are very porous. And again, you're going to need to have the use of technology to enable proper monitoring of the coastline.
We need to monitor, Mr. Paulwell, we need to monitor the wharf and the airport even more, because a lot of things illegal coming through them. A lot of things not searching, going to the big, I call them the big boys, you know, the man them up on top, right? A lot of things, like the other day, them just search around nearly 40 container with over $80 million worth of cocaine. Yeah, we need to monitor the wharf, those place more. We need to. Yeah, we need to. Yeah. Yes, man.
Yeah. There's a whole range of social things that will be necessary for us to address crime in the long term. We have our communities have been blighted for years. Not enough, not proper facilities for people to play. People are living on top of each other. Sewage, roads, dilapidated communities. Those things will require money to address them. Somewhat similar to the way the Zozos were conceptualized, but certainly not how they have been implemented. If you tell me how much time I have left.
You can go,
Because I thought I had a 9:30 cutoff.
Yes.
Because you know, I have some other things that I do.
Yeah, man.
On a Sunday night.
Yeah, man. Yes.
And of course, Zahra and others and yourself, you know that if you call me back next week, I'll be ready.
Yes, man. Definitely. We're going to. Yes, man.
Because listen, I love to talk about policies. I having served in the parliament for 27 years. I do believe that I have things that I can share. I believe I've had experience and I've seen a lot. And I believe now, as I look to give way to younger people, there are things that I would like to share, and especially in how we build back the respect and prestige of our leadership, so that people go back to seeing our leaders in a respectable way, in a way that they trust, and in a way that will encourage them to come in and aspire to become leaders. Because in the end, if we don't have our young people becoming politicians, then you're going to have a dying breed, and you're going to have a country that will be run by ruffians. Right? So that, I believe, is a mission that I have to pursue before I go, while we do succession planning. I don't think we have been effective at succession planning. But my crime plan started with the reform in the police force, and I set out a whole slew of reforms. And I'll share the document with you. Then it looked at the role of technology, what I have seen happen across the globe, where in London recently, some guys shoot up some people on a bridge, and within 5 hours, they were known and they were caught. But on the social side, that is where we have the greatest challenge, because our education system has not been able to get the kind of development going where people are far more conscious, are far more responsible, not only for themselves, but their communities. Why you should see it as your responsibility to talk to your neighbor when they're engaged in activities that are unlawful. Why you should see it as your responsibility to go to the police and to report these things. Why we shouldn't get back to the stage where the community becomes a village that sees every child as theirs. We have turned off a lot of those social workers, people who are involved in dispute resolution.
PMI?
Of course, them, right? They have not been funded, but they were very useful in our communities, right? As engaging the so-called bad men and to try to discourage them away from a life of violence. Invite me back and I'll read the article for you. Go through it line by line, because I believe that there is some sense in it.
Okay. We see a time I run off, and we just really forget warm, but we'll continue. And we have to carry you back. We have to carry you back, right? Yes.
Yeah, because I want to talk about energy.
Me 2 questions before him go.
Hold on, Mr. Paulwell. Yes, man.
Yes. Anybody want to talk about energy?
Repeat.
No, I was wondering if nobody going to talk about energy. Energy is still a problem that we face.
Yes, the energy, we haven't touched that yet, but you will watch your time, because people can't pay light bill or nothing right now, It hurt us bad, When we say bad, we talk straight, right?
All right, so we take Mr. Marcel's thing and then we come back another time. Yes.
Huh?
We can take Marcel's question and then we'll come back another time to deal with it.
Okay, Marcel, go ahead.
All right. You being a lawyer and you touch some stuff about your belief that if a person is in government, that they should step away from your company. But as we speak, the current Speaker of the House sits in the chair while there's a lawsuit against her and her law firm. Should she step back or what? And I have another question too.
Well, I beg of you, don't put me on the spot in relation to some of my colleagues. Remember, the Speaker is not a member of the executive. She only presides over the affairs of the Parliament. And strictly speaking, I don't see a difficulty with her practicing law while being Speaker. If she were a minister, I would have an issue with that. But I don't see it as an issue for her. Listen, I was hearing Mr. Rattigan talking about poverty and how good it is for us to do it. But listen, for the rest of my time that I'm in opposition, I'm going to try to make the most of it so that I can have a good pension here.
All right. There's a follow-up question. It appears that the foreign companies that apply for internet and telephone license seem to get a better treatment than a local applicant like Carousel. But just to tie into that, what is your take on the Elon Musk deal? Because it seems as if it just popped out of the box on us, and I know there's a possible eavesdropping component to the Elon Musk system.
In relation to our telecom situation, I regret that today we don't see many more Jamaican businesses engaged in telecommunications, ICT services. When I was minister and we started the revolution, we had issued up to the time of 2007 about 150 licenses, but many of those persons are no longer in the game. And we have to try to understand why. I can tell you that it wasn't for want of trying. when Digicel came to Jamaica, and people talk about Digicel these days and don't remember who was the person who enabled that. I said to Digicel, listen, you're coming here. My advice to you is to link with some Jamaican businesses to become part of your enterprise. And they said, okay, Minister, recommend some Jamaican businesses so that we can see if they will want to get some shares into our company. And I gave them about 7 businesses. And to every person they went to, they were told, you know, we don't know nothing about telecommunications. This thing is so far-fetched from our view. People couldn't contemplate that Jamaicans would have over 2 million, 3 million phones. And so Digicel went it alone. And so the profits to them, I'm glad that Digicel used Jamaica as their home territory, as their branch off worldwide. But there are not many Jamaicans, whether here or in the diaspora, who are involved in this very lucrative area. And I believe that there are ways to cover that. But I'll probably wait until I'm returned as minister.
Sir Paulwell, there's a public perception that you benefited from deals signed by you as minister, say for arguments like Carib Cement, JPS, Cuban Light Bulb, and other deals like that. That's the public perception. What is your say on that?
Yes, nonsense. You know, my role in government has always been to take on the battle on behalf of the Jamaican people. There are people who resent me for this, people who dedicated their life to put down. So there are scars from the battle with Cape and Wireless, because how dare me to challenge this company. There are scars from the battle of the motor vehicle industry. I challenged the new car dealers because Jamaica was the only place in the world where a car lands today and tomorrow the price triple. And I said the only way to do that is to flood the market with cars that the ordinary Jamaicans could buy. People hated me for that. And I bore those cars. I challenged JPS. Every company that I have been minister for know that I was a no-nonsense minister. The first meeting I had with Cable and Wireless, they came into the room and they offered me a phone, and I said, no, I'm not into that. I'm into securing the benefits on behalf of the Jamaican people. So that's the reason why today I can declare my assets and declare that these hands are completely clean, and nobody can dare to challenge that.
One final question.
Yeah,
what is your take on the final one? What is your take on the new Firearm Act, being that persons are still getting sentences below the range, like a 5-year sentence for possession of firearm?
I'm glad I never touch a matter of my own firearm, but I know, and it's not a joke matter; it's a serious matter.
Yes.
No, I think there are some good aspects to the new firearm law. I think the gun is our problem. You know, if it were up to me, I would completely disarm our society, but I can't do it. If it were up to me, I wouldn't give one firearm license, but that is not practicable when you have the criminals out there who have so many. But we have to find a way to get to that state, you know, where the gun isn't seen as the great defender, where the gun isn't seen as so powerful, where our young boys don't see it as a symbol of strength and power. So to the extent that this new Firearm Act can catch some of those people with illegal firearms, put them away for some time, and to make people have the fear that they will be caught, I support it. And ultimately, to disarm the entire society. There's no need for us to have weapons of mass destruction on our bodies.
Yeah, man, thank you.
Mr. Wayne.
Yes.
Thank you very much for having me, sir.
All right, and before you go, though, we have a good friend out of East here, you see? Why you give him a look over, him name Danny Marina. He's a from a young man, him a try hard, you know. I'm see that them out to protect when look a place right now. Yeah, now you have to talk the government. Listen, you're the MP out there. That young man try hard. He's not a little corner youth. Him try hard and build up himself. I'm see them try go around him, stand up for him.
I go there to eat all the time, so I know the place very well.
Good.
And I know the efforts he has put into it.
Stand up for him. When you see young people that try and that try hard, you must stand up for them and make sure everything all right. Because him one of them will hold up the constituency, eh? Good word model. All right, good. All right, you have a good day. Go have a good night. And remember, we have to carry you back, you know, because it's too short. And right now, we just ready to get warm. But
I want to talk to Rattigan some more about the crime plan. If we can solve crime in Jamaica, Rattigan will come back home tomorrow. Not true.
All right. Thank you.
Put you on the spot, Rattigan.
Yeah, man. Take care, Mr.
Have a good night.
Get log off. Yes, man. Okay.
Guys, I also have to go as well, right? So I'm going to stay another 10 minutes and then I'm going to bounce, okay?
Yes, man. Yes, man. Yeah, man. Lovely, lovely. Yeah, as I was saying already again, you know, you want, you know, government to start work, do policies, separate themselves from the police force, because too much of this are going on now, you know, both ways, you know, and each time you have a government, you have some different set of police come in, who forget charged, lock up, then they get charged. It go from, you know, a matter of fact, in Jamaica, when last you ever see anyone up top get charged and sent to prison? You ever see that, Zahra? You ever see anything like that?
Well, not sent to prison, but we certainly had charges laid against Minister or former Minister Wil Rattigan and his compatriots, his wife, his daughter, and the principal over at CMU at the time, Fritz Pinnock. And of course, the councillor, who is more of a political figure over in Brownstown. So, you know, we do have charges, but of course, all of these different legal challenges are... Well, as I said, it's been legally challenged up the yang. I mean, I've just been like agog at the number of legal challenges that this guy Wildman, Mr. Hugh Wildman, has put forth, you know, over the last couple of years. So as to, you know, they're well within their right to challenge. And the truth is that if that's their approach, whatever is legally sound that they want to pursue, that's on them to pursue. But to your point, I mean, there's just so much going on in society, so much going on in terms of corruption, and the charges are few and far between. But we have the Petrojam trial going on. Is it still going on? I didn't hear any guilty verdict or not guilty verdict. So what we do have, though, are at least written about, I don't know if it's on a stay or what's going on, but I do know that there were pursuing that particular trial against persons that were within the whole Petrojam saga, you know. So hopefully we get a conviction in that situation so that the people who continue to abuse the system get held to account, or at least think twice about pursuing certain actions, because it's no longer okay. We get away with it because that's been the norm for so long.
What to say about that, Rattigan?
Well, let me start by saying that the minister didn't answer Marcel's question, or the opposition or shadow minister didn't answer Marcel's question about the proclaimed stringent prison sentences. And now we're seeing, which was what, 15 to life or something like that. And now we're seeing what 5 years. So, and I've been preaching this. That this is it's a joke. And as Zahra said, you know, yeah, you have charges, but what have been the results? Nobody's going anywhere. I mean, like I said, if you want a good lawyer, find somebody who knows the law. If you want an extraordinary lawyer, find somebody who knows the judge. And that's what we have in Jamaica. We have extraordinary lawyers. I need not say much more than that. But the crime plan, look, the idea of a crime plan, that's in the rearview mirror, because the PNP and the JLP, they've moved on from a crime plan to a national security plan. And Herb can talk more about this, because it includes intelligence collection, intelligence-driven investigations. But the problem is that when you read the national security plan, it looks good on paper. I'm telling you, it really looks good on paper. When you go back and you look at all the assessments done on the JCF, they all look good on paper. But if you read one, you don't need to read the rest of them because they all say the same thing. They all find the same faults. They all come up with the same recommendations. Now we're with this national security plan called Plan Secure Jamaica, and it's not working. It's not working, and we keep throwing good money after bad. You hear him talking about dogs. I introduced a guy who breed these kinds of dogs in Florida to the prime minister, and he had a contract, and the guy had to withdraw because they wouldn't pay him. He trains dogs that can sniff out contraband, guns, ammunition, drugs, and they wouldn't pay the guy. And instead, they went down to, I think, Colombia, and they got some inferior dogs. And the guy was laughing. Now, think about it. Minister Chang said in 2022, February 2022, or maybe 2021, that he had 1 point something billion US dollars to spend from fiscal year 2016 to fiscal year 2022, 2023 on Plan Secure Jamaica. And now we find policemen are just getting vests. And I question the durability of those vests, right? But they still don't have cars. They still don't have guns. They still don't have collapsible batons. They still don't have pepper spray. They still don't have vehicles. They still
most critically, and I've seen people mentioning it in the chat, body cameras. It's like when I've seen any video from body cameras, especially, I mean, that guy that was killed the other day, I know everybody going to take me to task for it, but to really ask the question, was that a planned operation where he's just taken out, is that the way that, and then the commentators like on Nationwide, I remember one day listening, and it's almost as if, they just accept it, there's no questioning of, okay, how was this actually executed, at least at that particular time? And, I didn't think that was, to me, questioning and inquisitive enough, but I know Jamaica don't care. They just feel as if him for dead, But I think, when you are in the role that, let us say, human rights activists are in, or even I am in, you do have to question these things like, okay, how did this actually go down? I mean, the how is also important to me.
Listen, with regards to that and the spyware, if indeed we had Pegasus or some other software that sounded all telephones recorded for record, it would be easier then for the guys at Indicom to go back, look at the phone call coordination prior to the operation, and listening to what was said in some of those coordinating calls. If also we sound the very room where the police briefings are held, or where the high-level command meets prior to an operation, that should reveal also what was the plan and who said what. So if you went out and deliberately assassinated a citizen in Jamaica, somebody had to give the order, which now takes me back an example to this accountant. What's his name again, Wayne? Clark?
Which one?
Do this accountant.
I don't remember his name.
The one that died in Tivoli, you're talking about?
No. He died up in Red Hills at his.
Clark was his name. Clark was his name.
His name is Clark.
It was Clark.
No, hold on a second. Are you talking about the people
Mr. Clark, I don't know if it's
around the time of Tivoli, when in 2010? That's what you're talking about?
Yes.
2010.
That is
That's Keith
Mr. Clark. Yes, Mr. Clark.
Right. Keith Clark.
I think he's actually related
Keith
to
Clark.
our
Keith Clark.
finance
He's
minister.
related to Nigel. Is his uncle, I believe.
Yes.
Right.
I think he's related to Horace Clark, his brother, former minister.
Right. Now, his house was under surveillance by the MIU, Military Intelligence Unit, because they had to listen in on his phone and see what he and Dudus were discussing, and that would give them ideas of Dudus's movement, not just his physical movement, but his financial movements as well. If you have him under surveillance, and Colonel Rocky Mead was in charge of the field operations, above him is Brigadier Anderson, who is the current Commissioner of Police. And of course, you had a 2-star general above him. The military does not operate on privates or corporals or sergeants making decisions to go in and take somebody out. That order is an operational order that came verbally, most likely, because they don't want any written records. And it had to come from the Minister of National Security to the brigadier down to Rocky Mead as colonel in charge of the operation. If you are being watched by the MIU, just like how the gentleman who was recently convicted in New York, the Muslim cleric, was being watched, and his telephones were sounded by MIU and by the police. How does a phone call come through to this man and they don't hear it, and they decide that he should be shipped off to New York to be tried for introducing somebody in New York to the terrorist group in Syria? So these are the things that having a record from the sounding of the telephones, right? That record is legal and it has to be put away for probably at least 20, 30 years. So you wouldn't have all of this contradiction that the police is setting up a Muslim clerk who happened to be Jamaican, setting them up with Jamaican American police officers in NYPD to be caught and tried for something that not even the FBI or CIA had an interest in. This was solely to make the new NYPD intelligence group look good. Now, what we're talking about before was do this accountant. And you brought up the point of somebody being put on a hit list. He was on a hit list. They need to admit that. They need to come clean. Because nobody below the rank of that colonel could have given that order. You don't have captains, lieutenants, majors, or even lieutenant colonels deciding somebody must die. If you're going to kill or capture mission, it comes from the top. So the question then is, why do we have a corporal and 2 privates on trial for something, an order that was given from the top? When are we going to recognize this is blatantly wrong and remove this DPP for doing ridiculous stuff like that?
Well, let me just say a couple of things, which is that if you remember, it was, I would say, some of the blame lies at the feet of Mr. Bunting, Shadow Minister, but he at the time was Minister of National Security. It was because of him why for a long time they were granted immunity from, facing charges. But luckily, I think that got overturned or something to that. The point is that from last thing I read anyway, they were supposed to be going forward with the trial on the JDF soldiers. Now, to your point, you're asking the question, why is it that there isn't a higher up who is charged? And I would agree with that question. Why isn't there a higher up charged? But to me, the important thing is for that trial to go ahead, to hear those people on trial say exactly who gave those orders so that that person can then become implicated. Because
they wouldn't know. They might know a sergeant told them.
Right. And then the sergeant
goes in denial. What happens then?
So you
Well,
see
I
what?
can tell you something that even on this, even on the police side, the same thing happened. Owen Ellington was the one at the top of the force at that time, and he hasn't been charged. He's skirting along nice over the last time I checked over CMU, working over there. I don't know if he's still working over there, but the point is he's still getting a government check, and he presided over one of the biggest massacres in our history, right? Now, when you have somebody like that on the government rolls still, you have to really question, where exactly are we going as a society? Where is the accountability in the society? The Gleaner gave him Man of the Year that year, right? And you're saying to yourself, you know, it's like you really have to wonder, okay, where are we as a society? In other words, do we condone the kind of level of killing that we have, not just from, you know, well, from a state perspective? I think that's extremely troubling. And you're right, Herb. Who are the higher ups that need to be held to account? Why aren't they being held to account? And why are we hugging them up? That's the part of it that really boggles my mind. Hug up Pat.
May I interject?
Hold on, Zahra. But you know, it's really hard because you as a soldier, just taking orders, right? If you refuse, you get court-martial, right? And them send you're carrying out your duty. And it's so bad that they all on and you, charge you, when the things come from way up. This is what I'm talking about. You understand? No one. And
it's a serious problem in our society.
And it's so bad. So it always, the small one, them down here.
No one is here. On trial. He actually got convicted. He got convicted in recent years for being part of a death squad. And it's basically because he confessed to what he was doing, right?
Chucky Brown. Chucky Brown again.
Yeah, Chucky Brown. In that trial, no one was sitting there for about 1 or 2 days for that trial. And how they do it, right? They don't give you the exact person who is implicated in his testimony. They give you initials. Right? So everybody say OE, right? And you have to figure out who is that, right? Or whatever the case is. And so it's like, what I'm trying to say to you is, you're right to some extent too, that even if these guys go on trial and them get off because them said this person who was the brigadier or who was the colonel gave the instructions, or the sergeant gave me and the sergeant then got the instruction from this person. The long story short is that the chain of command is protected under our system, and it is wrong. That's what I'm talking about. It's wrong. If this person got the instructions from a particular person, the particular person name must call in the trial, right? And stop cover and hug them up.
When?
Yes.
And it is alleged that the young man in question that was taken out the other day presented himself at a meeting of a member of parliament on the government side and fired a shot or some shots. And that is the reason for his demise. And he ran away to Clarendon to hide. That is the story on the street. That is the reason. Because he's been wanted for a very long time, very, very long time. And you have not heard much attempts made at him or stuff like that. Only one where they found his camp and they removed some weapons and stuff. But it is alleged that recently he did that and then he ran away to Clarendon and he was traced and tracked and removed.
But that is what I'm looking at though. You know, when you look at World War II, we go way back to World War II and these things, right? And when you look at the Nazis, you don't see them just come and assassinate or take out the small soldier. Them no, them get out the big boys because them are the cause of all these kind of things. And you continue, but in Jamaica, from police, same one we just talk about Chucky Brown, the death squad. Him alone get 51 years. No one else. No, you charge 3 police, 3 soldiers now for Clark murder. What happened to the chain of command? Them just doing them job, it's wrong. Them shouldn't even, I better you have something protecting them then. Because it's wrong. So we just throw them under the bus. But if you never do it, you get court-martial. How that work? It don't make any sense.
Wayne, let me interject here. Any illegal order to murder or rob or anything like that cannot be followed. And that came out of the tribunal after World War II, when they hanged these Nazi officers who said Hitler ordered them to wipe out Jews and other people that were in their area of operation. That establishes the Geneva Convention. All of these things establishes the killing of civilians and other combat. Well, they call them non-combatants and combatants. So non-combatants who were murdered in Tivoli Gardens, 41, I think, or something like that. According to Mr. Siaga, it was a lot more, up to 155. Those non-combatants had rights under Geneva Convention.
Good.
Right?
Yes.
And when they decided to fire mortars in the middle of a occupied area where citizens live, and they knew what the maximum kill range was for those mortars, right? There's a maximum effective range where you'll certainly die, and there's a maximum range where you're going to die or get maimed, badly maimed, right? They knew what it was, yet still they fired. Now, the officer who carried out the command is subject to court-martial. But did they court-martial him? No, because these officers close ranks and they take care of each other. But when you put it on the privates and the corporal to go in and execute a citizen, all of a sudden, no, you want to try them. This is why I say there is this unequal treatment by rank, which discriminates against the poorer classes of people who join the army or the police force.
And Rattigan?
Will?
Yeah. No, well, I'm sorry, what was that, Herb?
Any follow-up you looking for?
Well, I don't know much about the Tivoli incursion, except what I've learned from mostly you, and the accountant and all this stuff. The only thing is that what I would comment on is the state of lawlessness in Jamaica. It stems from the top. Everybody knows this. And there is no political will to do anything about it. And so they can come up with all the crime plans. They can come up with all the laws, the Firearms Act, road traffic, this, that. It means nothing unless you have people who are willing to execute. People who are willing to implement these things. I want to say implement them, not just in a perfunctory way, just in a matter of fact, but people who are willing to take it to the hilt and put people in prison. I've said it time and time again. Jamaican politicians, they're not fearful of Jamaican law. They're not fearful of Jamaican law enforcement. They're not. They're more fearful of losing that green card. The B1, B2 visa, right? And they're fearful of coming to America and sitting in a prison. And until we start, I think the turning point is when we start getting donor agencies and donor countries to start getting involved with the justice system in terms of prosecuting these people overseas. I think that's when you'll see a sea change. Other than that, if we think that Jamaican politicians are going to go in there and clean up everything, it's not going to happen. We may have with Mark Golding and Peter Bunting, and I say may, because I don't think they have an incentive to do what we're seeing right now. Or they may have less.
What are you saying, Rattigan?
Well,
no, hold on, back up. What are you saying? Clarify.
What I'm saying is that they're learning right now, looking at everything that's going on right now in terms of corruption in the government. And I think because they're being scrutinized, and people like Wayne, who, he has them on the program all the time. So it's not like 10, 15, 20 years ago when they didn't have anyone looking at them, and not only looking at them, but also making recommendations to them.
But I'm asking you to get specific. What do you mean when you say about Minister No, it's a Matt Golding and Mr. Bunting. What specifically are you giving them credit for? I just want to understand.
No, I'm giving them, what I'm saying is that they are now made aware that specifically that people are looking and people are going to hold them accountable. So they're benefiting from what we're doing. Unlike 15 years ago when you didn't have a panel like this 15, 20 years ago. So people were just operating. In fact, some of them were operating blatantly because we were in the shadows. People are non-existent. But now you have a program like Wayne who's on every single day and he's beating this into the psyche of Jamaicans. So now these politicians looking from the outside, the opposition I'm talking about, they're looking at the mistakes and the missteps and the crimes being committed by the government. And so they know that if they go in there, that they'll be held to pay if they start doing the same thing. No, so that's what I mean by...
Yes, you're right. And we have to hold them right across the board, right? Not too much arrogance. Like, you know, like a journalist talking to Warmington, and him say, is the younger bridge? Now you're talking to a minister of what? Minister of what? Job creation? Minister of Job creation? Good. And him say, are the younger bridge? And him hang up and him talk and disrespect. These things need to cut out. These people have to know that, listen me, when people put you, when people vote you in as government, you form the government, we're going to hold it to account. No more of these arrogance and disrespect, and you just spend more money all you want to do it and do anything where you want to do it. Not going to work. You understand me? Not going to work. It have to go.
Well, Zahra, I can't begin to tell you on a daily basis how many people call and say, I want to thank you and Wayne and Herb and the fireman and the defender and all of these people out there, including you, Zahra, for at least trying to hold the government accountable. And so these people in waiting, all right, they're looking at this and they're going, you know what? There's a new day here. There's a sea change because we can't go in there and do the same thing that these people are doing because these people are, they're hitting them street and lane, day and night, left and right, up and down, north and south. So they know, and fair warning has been served to them. Fair warning has been served to anybody who's thinking, harboring the idea of being in government. That one.
But aren't we? I don't know if that is. I don't necessarily agree with you. I'm going to be upfront. Okay. I don't agree with you. I really feel as if I have not seen a clear enough distinction between the two parties when it comes to the issue of one, corruption, leadership. I feel as if in the JLP government right now, we just keep hearing about scandal after scandal, and they have the benefit of us having done all of these different either exposés or these talks that we do as we're doing right now, or these daily hammering home different points. It just seems as if one thing keeps coming out after another thing that keeps coming out. And I just get a sense that, you know, we want to, let us say, well, the PNP should learn this lesson. And maybe that's correct. They should. But will they? If they become the government again, will they really be able to take that moral high ground when we can't even in that conversation with Shadow Minister Paulwell or Shadow Spokesperson, Energy and Science Paulwell? He's afraid to, like, when the question was asked about Marissa Dalrymple, he doesn't want to comment on his colleague. You know what I mean? It's too much of that going on, right? And to your point, Rattigan, when you said, you know, if you want an extraordinary lawyer, talk to one who knows the judges. There's too much of that in Jamaica. We're just too mixed up. We're too close to each other. We're not willing to speak out about certain issues. You know what I mean? It's one thing to have a conflict of interest, but to then just say, well, it's my colleague. You know, I mean, what the crap is that? What kind of response is that?
Well, that's why I'm all for donor agencies and donor countries getting involved.
No, but that's what I'm saying is that is the opposition. So when he can say those things to us, that tells us what we can expect in the future, which is, I don't want to say anything.
Well, here's the thing. I will not take a selective instance to prove a general statement. And just because Paulwell feels that way, I don't know.
You can paint the broad brush with everyone, yes.
Yeah, I don't know if it's representative of the entire party.
And
in fact, in some of the questions, in some of the answers, he said, I'm speaking on behalf of Phillip Paulwell, and I made it clear to him that, you can't speak for the government. So, you know, it's a tough call, but I'm willing to say, you know what? Let see if they'll learn, because we don't know. We hope. They don't know. But what they do know is that there's a force out here ready, willing, and able to address the issue. It's not, and I keep going back to the type of people we have right now and the information that's being garnered. Now, you mentioned that, even though there's scandals, what we should recognize is that, yes, there's scandals, they're ongoing, but they're being uncovered. Years ago, some of these things coming to the fore now would never be uncovered. Never, never, never. So we don't know, and I'm hearing this. I don't know if it's true. I'm hearing that some of the politicians are having sleepless nights because, one politician told me directly that Wayne Lonesome has made him a project, and he's fearful of that.
That's true.
Yeah, he told me that, right? So if we can get them to start thinking, because before they never think twice about stealing and all that, now they have to come up with and devise ingenious ways to get around what we're doing. So we'll see. We'll just have to wait and see.
Guys,
listen.
Guys, 1 second.
Let me say this quickly, Marsha. One of the things is the social media, the social networks are impacting everyone, politicians, as well as pastors, as well as police, soldiers. Everybody's been impacted by social media. So you can carry on and you can have your rendezvous in the dark. Them say what happens in the dark always comes to light, right? And there's somebody out there that shine a flashlight or had them cell phone at the right time and film something that is going to terrify you for the rest of your life because they have you on video. We have that going on in the US, and it needs to. Jamaica has per capita, I think, the most cell phone per citizens in the world. Even the donkey cart man and the man pushing the hand cart have all 7 phones. I guess from girlfriends here in the US who fly down, and they each give them a phone. But the bottom line is they have the phones. What I'd like to see, if Wayne, you can come up with a toll-free number that they can call in and give us tip-offs that we can pass to Crime Stoppers. And we can analyze some of the information that they're giving us and some of these bigwigs and the chicanery that is going on. Because we really need that type of information to be called in or can be emailed in. So we can give them options.
So I'm going to tell you something and this serious. So we have it even better than that. Because you see, when you're doing crime, whether you're a minister or whatever, you need people to work with you to commit your crime or carry out the illegal affairs. When people like the man in the wind, the right side of you, and know these people, you have all these links, it's better than when a man, women don't know a calling, You understand? Where you can get videos and you build files and you have all these things. So when you're ready now, you just sync them. So we have it even better. You understand? We have it better. Yeah, man. We have to be like the FBI. Right, Rattigan?
There's your best source, Zahra. You don't have to go away and interview anybody.
Yeah, man.
Wayne Lonesome.
So we have it right there. Yes, man.
Guys, I told that I was gonna go, right? And I need to go because I'm trying to
we're just gonna wrap up anyway. So
okay, all right.
Yes. Zahra, why are you running?
Yeah, man. So,
I just wanted to say something, guys.
And we need to get a firm commitment from her.
yes,
Every program that we have, that she's gonna make some kind of appearance.
Of course.
No, I don't know about that. Oh gosh.
All right, Marcel.
Yes. I think the Jamaican people have regretted not voting a particular way the last 2 elections. Seeing the numbers of the opposition is weak, so they are outvoted no matter what. And that's coming in from the sentiments off of the street. Another thing that has been highlighted is that what we must realize is that today, the people are getting wiser because of the social media, because there's information so readily accessible. You can hit Google, you can hit this, you can go back and review something. So persons are being more aware. So they'll be making a lot better decisions. Um, just what, 2 Saturdays ago, I heard that there was a no confidence vote um, being floated around at a retreat. And one of the bargaining chip that was used is that, oh, I know your IP address. And we haven't heard anything more since that was said as to how the outcome um, is on that no confidence vote. But it is also the sentiments on the street that I've been getting calls and persons have been expressing it all week and last week is that the prime minister may be exiting the country sometime soon. Um, that
Why though? And
that,
why this no? Some things I don't even
that he may be
follow
going
like
into
that,
exile.
brother. Me don't even follow like
I'm just telling you what the street is saying.
Yeah, me them too, me like the right side of them. So when me hear it, me take it so me can, if me can, confirm and say yes, that and that. This me not even bother say nothing about that and thing. When the street talk certain things, me like the right side of the room. The win. I like
Maybe they're pointing us.
So
Maybe
me know
they're
what
pointing us.
me keep it there, so,
But
yes.
I'm saying maybe they're pointing us in a direction. That's what
Yeah,
I'm saying.
but I don't even, I don't even think about that. I just pass over that right now.
Let me throw something out there. Herb, this morning I was interviewed on Ira FM, and one of the things that the interviewer insinuated, actually no, declared, was that could it be possible that U.S. investigative intel agencies, they have the goods on these politicians, but they're safekeeping it for leverage purposes? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, we saw that with Trump's ambassador to Jamaica, because he's sure as hell leverage my good friend Daryl. And Daryl today has his visa back, albeit with annotations about him, right? So it is a common practice in the intelligence community that in the old days you would try to frame up. The most popular framing was the
honeypot.
Honeypot, yes. Yeah. And they've moved, and for people,
explain to people what's the honeypot, because I'm not sure.
The honeypot frame up is you have this minister, where he frequents, what bar or what club, even in church, and you introduce some sweet-looking lady wherever they are, and if it's a woman, it's a guy, a stud, and they ingratiate themselves, by doing favors or what have you, and get noticed. And these are people that they wear anything skin tight, you can't help but notice. And once they decide to make a move on that person is going to take them to a hotel room or a house where there are cameras set up at all angles. There's sounding equipment for recording, and they get them there, get them to strip down, get in bed, and then they spring the trap. That's the honeypot trap. And it was popularly used by the East Germans against Western, military and politicians and stuff. So the bottom line is, it's out there. And a lot of our folks may have fallen into it somewhere along the way. But on the other hand, you don't even need the honeypot so much today. Why? Because you have, they send out junk mail that appeals to them. Like they use a friend's name and a friend's email to appeal to the person. that they are trying to set up. And the person will click on that mail because they recognize the name. And it turns out to be a false mail, but once they click on it, it opens up some kind of worm or
a virus
that will start sending out information from your computer
or your phone.
On the computer,
yes.
And it will learn everything that you're doing, and it records it, sends it out. So that way they have continuing information on you, and you're going to have issues down the road when they come to you and say, hey, you have a vote coming up in the OAS, and that vote is about putting this person back as president, and we want you to vote for that person. And you're going to say, well, no, I'm going to vote the way my prime minister directs, and my prime minister doesn't believe that person should be back. And they're just going to inform you, hey, that's how you're going to vote. And you need to take a look on your email tonight because we sent you something interesting that you need to take a look at. See, and they got you, right? So I said a long time ago in different programs that people who are compromised should not hold high office. And that's the very reason. Because if you're compromised, they're just going to drag you over the coals, right? You're not going to be able to represent Jamaica as such because you don't have any leverage on your own opinions. Who you going to take it to if they're in control of you? And that's a problem. So this is what intelligence is all about, right? Because when we go on the offense and we collect, you collect against everybody, not just your enemies. You collect against your own friends. Because they too will try and step out the line, and you got to remind them who you are and who you're dealing with, right? MI6 and CIA, sometimes there's no love lost. Because we'll tell the government, the UK government, what MI6 agents are stepping out the line. And then they'll hate you, right? MI5 or the
British Secret Service, yeah,
they are the opposite to FBI, and same thing happens there.
I mean, Herb, we don't even have to look too far in the past for examples. We just look at what they did with Merkel and what was did to the French.
Yes.
And these are supposed to be our allies, right? Our friends. So
yeah. But you see, the person that's, let's say, keep your enemies, keep your friends close, and or keep your friends close and your enemies even closer, or vice versa, something to that effect. And it's a true statement, because sometimes the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Why? They're going to inform on them. They want a favor from you, they're going to inform. So our guys, meaning Jamaica's intel guys, going to have to learn how to play the game, how the game is played.
Let me share a quick story with you guys. When I was in the FBI Academy, they used to have inspirational speakers every Thursday. And I went, and we were required to go after dinner. So I went this Thursday, and there's a guy, I won't mention his name, but he was, Herb will probably knows who he is. He's dead now, but very high-ranking State Department person. And I surmise what he was talking about. He said he mentioned a person working for the agency who was all over the Caribbean and that causing issues. And this was back in the 70s.
Yeah, Mr.
Exactly. Yeah, I suspect that's the guy he's talking about. And he said that a country approached the US and said, listen, we can take the care of this guy for you. And he said they thought about it, and then they said no. And he said the reason is we don't want anyone to have leverage over us in that regard, because if we said yes, we now would owe them a favor, and now they would be calling the shots, and God forbid we said we're not going to play your game, and then we're exposed. So you're right, all of these considerations go into a decision like that.
All right.
You cannot trust anyone, right? What Reagan used to say, trust
but verify.
Yeah, and that's true, right? So I know there's a guy I was stationed with in Panama, and he told this very good friend of us also, that he wanted him to drive back to the US and take his young wife up the Inter-American Highway, because he was going out on a mission, and then he would come back, he would clear, and then he would join her later on, right? Of course, he went on the mission. His friend took the wife up the Inter-American Highway, and instead of taking a week, they take 2. And when he got back home, she was moving out. So, you got that kind of trust going, your best friend, and this is what they'll do. There's all kinds of incidences of that, right? People will set you up because of jealousy. And we still believe to this day, those people who carried down Bolt's accounts are the people closest to him. And those are the people he trusted. Those are the people who kept telling him everything was fine. But again, he's to blame, because you got the internet, and all you have to do is take a trip to where your money is and ask to see the actual ledger to make sure nothing is going in and out.
Right.
That much.
We see what time running now, because we're going to like 2.5. So, it's the next week again, So we're going to run. So, we're wrap up, people. But we are telling splendid. Right? Mama Angie, see you running about forward back, Marcel, up here. Later.
Well, take care, and good night to your listeners and to our team members.
All right, Virgin.
Thank you, fellas.
All right.
All right, bless.
All right.